right, welcome back to the SportsMax Zone. We're continuing with football in Jamaica. That's our topic of discussion. Well, earlier today, the Jamaica Football Federation, JFF, unveiled its 23-man squad for the upcoming CONCACAF Gold Cup qualifiers against St. Vincent and the Grenadines on March 21 and 25. A total of 9 players from the Jamaica Premier League received a call-up by head coach Steve McLaren. Well, there are the league's top marksman, Arnett Gardens Warner Brown, Cavaliers Richard King and Christopher Ainsworth, Mount Pleasant's Shaquan Davis, Sule McCalla, Fitzroy Cummings and Kyle Ming, and finally Tyreek McGee of Vare United. Well, completing the squad, goalkeepers Andre Blake and Jamali White, defenders Ethan Pinnock, Joel Latibadair and Dexter Lembekisa, midfielders Bobby Reed, Isaac Hayden and Casey Palmer. The forwards are Shamar Nicholson, Demarai Gray, Kane Dixon and Ronaldo Cephas. Meanwhile, ahead of their clash against Jamaica, the head coach of the St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the senior men's football team, that's Ezra Hendrickson, he says they have some fine-tuning to do. This is what he said: "We have to work on our speed of play. It has been 5 months since we last played together, so it will take guys a couple of days to get back into the frame of things. We need to be on the same page going into the Jamaica match." Hendrickson will have an inter-squad today to help his squad selection, and this is what he said. "We'll have an inter-squad scrimmage to continue to give guys games and to make sure we are 90 minutes fit. It is a matter for us to pick the coaching staff and I to pick 24 out of 25 players who we think is the right mix." So, Lance, of course, hearing from the St. Vincent and the Grenadines coach, good. And we also heard from Steve McLaren earlier today. Let me first ask you your initial thoughts about the Jamaica Reggae Boys squad.
Pleasantly surprised that so many local-based players are getting an opportunity for this fixture. And it is good that there will be an opportunity for him to blend more of the local-based players with the overseas-based players, because that is essential for you to have a squad that has depth and a squad that develops confidence, because there is no question that the players who are overseas, Demarai Gray and Bobby Reed and company, need no boost when it comes to things like experience and know how to play at this level. But they are the younger players who are just developing their careers, the Kaim Dixons of this world and the young Jamaicans who are now currently plying their trade in the Jamaica Premier League, with an opportunity to rub shoulders with these overseas-based players and make the Jamaica team a stronger unit and give encouragement to players who are locally based, that they have an opportunity to play international football. So I think it is a good sign, because the players who play the JPL, who have been invited to the Jamaica international squad, are solid players. They have got into this setup because of how impressive they have been in the Arnett Nephew Jamaica Premier League. So I'm happy to see that. I can start there.
Yeah, they definitely got in on merit. And then we're thinking about the Jamaica Reggae Boys with the quality players that have been named against St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We just heard that quote from Hendrickson. Based on what you've known, Lance, and I mean, you've been covering the sport for a lot longer than many of us. So talk to me about St. Vincent and the Grenadines, a bit about their history in football, and what do you think coming into this matchup?
Well, they're trying to rebuild their program, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. They did have a pretty strong setup in the 1990s. In fact, they qualified for the CONCACAF Gold Cup in 1996. And they do have a friendly international victory over Jamaica, I think, in 2006. Ezra Hendrickson, who is now the coach of the team, a multiple MLS Cup winner in the United States for several different teams with Columbus Crew and Los Angeles Galaxy and so on, is trying to inspire his unit to resuscitate the image of St. Vincent and the Grenadines football, because it isn't now at the level that it was probably 20 years ago. So he has a tough job to get that done. he was a very successful player for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Whenever Jamaica played against St. Vincent and the Grenadines in the 1990s, and Ezra Hendrickson was playing, he was a captain for a long period of that time. He was a handful for the Jamaicans. He played a left back position or a right. It was a wing back position, but he was always persistent, good tackler, a good feeder of the ball, and always had the willingness to go forward with the ball. So I think he's trying to impact his players in a similar way and give them the confidence. So I don't think it's a team that the Jamaicans should underestimate. They had a couple of friendly internationals against Grenada in the past week. Both of them were 1-1 results. But there was a time when St. Vincent and the Grenadines was a potent force in Caribbean football. And while the Jamaicans have moved ahead of them significantly in the past 20 or 30 years, I would suggest that the Jamaicans should take this game seriously and expect SVG to challenge them.
Yeah, and you know, earlier today, Coach Steve McLaren, he spoke about the capacity crowd at last night's match. He's hoping, Lance, that, you know, he can get the same support when it comes to these Gold Cup preliminary matches. Do you think he'll get that based on...
Obviously
Look
not.
at Lance's face. You should have put the camera on Lance when I asked the question.
Well, there were over 30,000 fans at the stadium last night, so you're not going to get that for sure. There was a game against the USA a couple of months ago. I think they got 17 or 18,000,
yeah, it was
close to 20,000.
Yes.
I would suggest they'd be lucky if they get that. They would have to hope that the Messi appearance last night just opens up the appetite of the football fans in Jamaica, and it would have some spillover effect to make them go watch these Gold Cup prelims or Gold Cup qualifiers. But you wouldn't expect anything that we saw last night to be turning out for those matches.
Yeah. Well, we're staying with football, Lance.
Yeah, and we're going to tell you now that in Jamaica, Arnett Gardens maintained their hold on second position in the Jamaica Premier League with a comfortable 4-1 victory over Dunbeholden at the Anthony Spaulding Sports Complex. Other results on the day, so Harbourview claiming a much-needed 3 points with a 3-0 win over Chapelton Maroons, and Montego Bay United 2-1 over struggling Vere United. Thursday's results, leaving the standings looking like this. Mount Pleasant's lead atop the standings cut now to 7 points because they have 68, Arnett on 61. A further 2 points behind in third, Montego Bay United, who continue their winning run on their new coach, Paul Teagat Davis. Portmore on 47, Cavalier on 45, and Racing United on 41 are the other teams occupying the playoff spots at the moment. Waterhouse, just 3 points off a playoff spot. Tivoli, 5 points off a playoff spot. Dunbeholden sliding now to number 9 in the table. Harbourview leveling off a bit in the second round. I think they lost like 7 of their 13 matches in the second round, but they're beginning to improve and moving further and away from the relegation spots, which are currently held by Vere United and Humberland with 22 and 21 points respectively. But Chapelton are only goal difference better than Vere United for 12th spot. So very uncomfortable there for those teams at the bottom of the table. But Mount Pleasant continuing to soar, Mariah, atop the standings, and Arnett Gardens chasing as they look to book the top 2 spots that would propel them into automatic semi-final spots into the playoffs. Now the JPL will continue this weekend with the start of match week 30. We'll have Malines playing Chapelton, Harbourview against Humberland, Portmore tackling Vere United, Tivoli Waterhouse, Cavalier Dunbeholden, Mount Pleasant taking on the red-hot Racing United, who boast the best unbeaten run in the league at the moment, and Montego Bay United tackling Arnett Gardens. So those 2 fixtures at the bottom there, really, really hot matches because Arnett and Montego Bay are number 2 and number 3 in the league at the moment. Joining us now to preview match week 30 is JPL commentator Dean Smith. Dean, welcome to the SportsMax Zone. Always great to have you on the show. Montego Bay United at home to Arnett Gardens taking top billing this weekend. How do you see this match between second and third panning out?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Lance and Mariah. Yeah, big match. Of course, this is the 3rd edition of that match. in the first round fixture, Montego Bay got the win. Second round, Arnett Gardens was able to get the win, and now we go back to all things even between them, and we're looking for a very exciting matchup. Of course, the historic rivalry between Arnett Gardens and Montego Bay United. Then SEMA at the time, carries on, and two teams that have been playing some attractive football. Of course, Montego Bay United under new management now, but with Teagat Davis, you still have a very astute coach who loves to give the players freedom to play. So we can definitely expect a free-flowing game. Of course, Arnett Gardens red hot on form as well.
Yeah, and of course, part of the reason for that is the prolific form of Warner Brown, who has earned a national call-up as well. And he is really a handful for the defenders in the JPL at the moment, Dean.
You took the word out of my mouth. I was saying he's a real handful. I remember you mentioned just before I came on how when Jamaica played the USA, I saw him in the stadium on that match, and I said to him, do you hear my voice? Do you know who I am? And he said, I think you're the commentator who was giving me a hard time, something like that. And I said, yeah, man, because you just weren't scoring against my Lions in a match I'd done earlier in the week. And we just laughed about it. But since then, he has really put on pressure on the defenders. And there's a particular match that I really saw him in action that I said, this Warner Brown has the potential to really make tremendous impact for the national team. It was the derby, the Garden Derby against Tivoli Gardens, and he made a quick move. And I remember Lige coming on the zone saying, that's the kind of rate of play that scouts look for. And I said, yeah, Warner Brown is developing into a very astute attacker. Always had the potential from his days at St. Andrew Technical High School. Spent some time at Tivoli, now at Arnett, really flourishing. And I really do hope that he gets minutes and he buries some goals as well.
Yeah, and the fact is, if you look at the points table at the moment, not much between Arnett Gardens and Montego Bay, just 2 points. And there's always the feeling of teams trying to get automatic spots into the semi-finals as opposed to having to go through the first phase of the playoffs. And I have known coaches not to particularly like the fact that they're off for a couple of weeks because they have finished top two and not get some early action in the playoffs. So I'm not sure about the mindset of Xavier Gilbert and Montego Bay's coach Teagat Davis and how badly they want to make the top two.
Well, if you go based on what has happened in the most recent edition of the JPL last season, the two teams who finished at the top two, that was Mount Pleasant and Cavalier, they were able to navigate not playing in the earlier rounds of the playoffs, and they made it through to the final, and of course that was a repeat final. Not sure if that will carry on to this season. A lot of football is being played, a lot of tired legs perhaps will begin to have impact on the results as we go forward. So that's something that coaches have to be mindful of as well. I think the extra rest could do the players very well in that part of the competition, because when you reach the playoffs, the different level of anticipation, there's more crowd support, there's more pressure. So, I think you want to be out of that pressure, being able to see the other teams and make adjustments. Of course, there's always the benefit of playing football to keep a match sharp, but it's really a gamble. And personally, I agree with Arne Slot, Liverpool. He says there's no benefit in losing a game. And no, I don't think any coach wants to lose a game. So I think both coaches would have the motivation to get that automatic position.
Yeah, I'm going to move away from that Liverpool comment and I'm going to stick to the JPL.
What? Mariah.
Yeah, because I want to talk about that same point that you're making, minus the example with Liverpool, about, there's no benefit in losing a game and all of that. And I want to link it now to Cavalier, because Cavalier will be up against Don Beholden. Don Beholden has lost 3 games straight. So what are we thinking about Cavalier? Because I know a lot of the players might be a bit down based on what happened against Inter Miami, but there's the opportunity for Cavalier, even without their best players, to still come out and defeat this Don Beholden team. What say you?
I do believe Cavalier has a lot of quality. But as we saw in the match on Sunday when they played Waterhouse gave them a lot of problems as well, and they were not able to get a win. Now, what has happened with Cavalier in them playing Inter Miami and playing them so well that they have, garnered a lot more respect, is that there would be players in Jamaica who want to level up. And let's use that term. They'd want to say, well, I don't want Cavalier to feel as if they are elite above us, and we want to bring them to the side. So Don Beholden might be even more motivated to play harder against Cavalier based on Cavalier's success in that relative success. When you think about the size of the club and the kind of finances and the star quality in both rosters, I think they'll be motivated to give them a hard run. But I do believe Cavalier has the quality to stand against any of the teams in the JPL at the moment.
Yeah, and what about Don Beholden? What has accounted to that 3 straight losses? What's going wrong there?
So it's in the matchup, recently against Arnett Gardens. Of course, they were down to 10 men for the majority of the game, and that would have been a big issue. Some of the teams that have beaten Don Beholden are quality teams, so we have to mention that. Racing among them. Of course, Racing has been flowing well. So I wouldn't want to blame Don Beholden too much for Racing beating them, because I believe on their day, Racing can give a lot of teams problems, as we're seeing in the league. But in that Arnett match, being down without one of their key defenders would have affected them. And then there is I believe, perhaps a bit of complacency has crept in. Now that they are out of the relegation consideration, they've been able to get a few scalps and they are solidified mid-table now. Perhaps that has crept in as well. But I do know that Harold Thomas has the quality in his coaching abilities to get the team back to functioning as they should.
Yeah, Dean, I know we've spoken about the Montego Bay Arnett Gardens match, which is one of the biggest matches of the weekend, but I think the most intriguing match that comes up this weekend is Mount Pleasant, the leaders, against Racing, who are boasting a 12-game unbeaten run. Yes, they were beaten by Mount Pleasant in the first 2 meetings this season, but the second loss was a 3-2 loss, which means that there was some improvement from the first game when they failed to score. Mount Pleasant, obviously a solid team. Their body of work for the entire season so far, irresistible. But on form, I get the impression that no team wants to face Racing United.
And they should. They really should. Even when you mentioned the second match, that was a 3-2 loss for Racing United. Had it not been for a stellar save that perhaps could be a save of the season candidate by Shaquan Davis, denying Romain Bowers from about 35 yards away, it was a strike destined for goal. So Racing has been putting down some good performances, and I do believe that on their day they'll be able to put a real stern challenge to Mount Pleasant. Of course, lots of quality in the Mount Pleasant roster, well coached, well drilled unit, but I do believe the momentum that Racing United is riding on will give them all the more confidence to stand against Mount Pleasant in a very tangible way. I can't say they are definitely going to win, but I think the least should happen on their behalf is a draw.
Yeah, well, we just saw that strike there from Javon Basco, which I think will be a part of our SportsMax Last Moment nominations with that tremendous strike that he scored in the 2-2 draw against Arnett Gardens. So this Racing team full of confidence, and like we've spoken about Cavalier placing so much emphasis on youth, Racing, Dean, is also a team that highlights, giving young players an opportunity to develop their craft.
Yeah, that's a big part of the mantra of their coach, Anthony Patrick. In their most recent win, beg your pardon, against Waterhouse just yesterday, they had 2 teenagers who scored. One was Kadeen Young of St. Catherine High, and the other one, Messi from Kingston College. He just played recently in the Manning Cup final as well. So it shows...
His name isn't Messi, is it?
All that chatter pre my segment here has really affected my memory. the Messi mania still continues.
Yes.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah.
The fact that they called him Messi means that he has quality.
Yeah, he certainly has a lot of quality, and we expect a lot more young players coming through. Of course, Anthony Patrick, being the coach of St. Catherine High School, has the ability to develop them and bring other players in the setup as well. We see goalkeeper Marion Brown getting starts, and quite a lot of the other players. Markovich Brown came through the St. Catherine High setup as well. So he's very invested in youth development, and they have rewarded him with a solid run, 12 games unbeaten, getting some big scalps as well, and the energy and the vibe that drives that club, I believe, it's great for the league. It's a good advert for the league. Them just moving up out of Tier 2 and making the top 6, that's a big move for racing.
Yeah.
It will just before we close, it's so much more interesting because Tivoli and Waterhouse 7 and 8, they play on Sunday, and Racing and Mount Pleasant, I beg your pardon, they play on Monday. Now, if Racing loses and Waterhouse wins, they move back into the top 6. Racing will be on 7. If Tivoli wins over Waterhouse, and even if Racing lose, it keeps them there. So a lot of intrigue and a lot of things happening in Racing's favor. You could look at it on that way as well.
Yeah, and we have to remind our viewers that this is the longest regular season in the history of the Jamaica Premier League. There are 39 rounds of football. We're approaching 30 now, so we're heading into the last phase of the regular season, and all of these results now very, very important to the teams looking to secure playoff spots, and also the ones at the bottom of the table trying to wriggle their way out of the relegation positions. But Dean, thanks a lot for linking with us here on the show today. Some intriguing matches that are coming up Sunday and Monday, and we can't wait to see them. And we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, yeah, man.
Okay, Dean Smith there, just giving us his take on what's to come in round 30 of the Red Nephew Jamaica Premier League matches Sunday and Monday on SportsMax platforms. And we'll be back with more on The Zone after this.